Hello everyone and welcome to BlockchainGamer.biz, the weekly news roundup. Today is Friday the 26th of January and I'm your host Jenny Jordan, and with me is co-host John Jordan. Hi John.
Hello, how are you?
Good, thanks. I want to start off by saying if you want to read our news stories more in depth than what we cover here, and also find news that we haven't covered here, you can find it on BlockchainGamer.biz or on our Twitter, BCGBiz. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn. So this week, the kind of big thing for our team has been the we revealed the top 50 blockchain game companies of 2024 at Pocket Gamer Connect's London. And you'll talk more about that, John, because you're the one who's basically put together that list. Polygon NFT trading volume has broken 100 million, and that is much thanks to Gas Hero from Find Satoshi Lab. You've been talking to David Moore, which was also a panelist on Pocket Gamer Connects. You've been talking about payments for the on-chain game downstream, also about the sort of thinking behind that, and the sort of what it means to build a godless game, as he calls it. And if you just talk, it's just a brilliant interview. So go and give it a listen. There's so much good stuff to put your teeth in that one. Blocklords has announced it's doing a airdrop campaign, as so many other games at the moment. We'll look into a little bit more what that entails. Faraway Games, which this was announced last week, really, so we did cover it a bit then, where they announced in partnership with Yuga Labs that the Dookie Dash is having sort of a sequel, Dookie Dash Unclogged. So we contacted the Faraway team, which was sort of the part that we were the most interested in, about their creator suite and how they are sort of focusing on the creator and artist, how you can empower and kind of encourage them through digital ownership, and how that will work within the game and in their other sort of projects that they have co-developed with Yuga as well. Axie fans have been a bit upset this week with Axie Homeland going into open beta, but that's not the only thing that's sort of upset them. They don't like the art style very much, but also that means the end of land staking. So you'll talk more about that, John, because you've been affected in various ways about that. Gamee's token that's connected was hacked this week for an equivalent of $50 million, 600 Gamee tokens.
15 million. 15
say
million.
Again.
1 5
What
million,
did I say?
50.
Oh, did I?
5
Okay.
0,
Sorry.
yeah.
Okay. And to top it off, Endless Clouds have announced that they are bringing their Treeverse and Captured Heroes games to Immutable. And there's been plenty more games that's been onboarded by Immutable in the last couple of weeks. But we'll talk more sort of about that later on. Right, so do you want to kick us off? Talk us through your thinking. How do you sort of... how do you create the top 50? Where do you start? What's your thinking behind it?
Yeah, good starting point. Try not to go into too much detail. So, so I've been sort of doing these top 50 developer lists for a long time now. I did the first one in 2009, in fact, for a previous website, PocketGamer.biz. So I was covering mobile developers back then. So it's obviously not a particularly original sort of thought to have a listing of companies. It proved to be quite useful in the mobile space. That's still being run. I'm not involved with it anymore. But I always found it a useful annual sort of experience to think about everything that sort of happened in the past year, and a little bit forward looking about. Sometimes games that aren't out yet, and you think they're going to do well. So in some ways it's kind of quite complicated because you're trying to look at a whole industry and sort of rank it. At least in terms of the top 50. So there's a whole big thing about, obviously there's many more companies in the blockchain space than 50. So you have a big sort of process of who's going to be in, who you think should be in the top 50 and who you think shouldn't be. And then you always end up with sort of 70 that you think should be in there, and then you sort of have to start thinking about why this company sort of rank higher than the other ones. And it is it is an art rather than a science, I would say. Clearly we have data, particularly in blockchain. We have a lot of data around token prices and daily active wallets and all this sort of stuff. So we are helped a little bit on data, but it's not. I'm not trying to point out, or I'm not trying to highlight this company made the most money or anything like that. It's a different sort of thing. So it is, commercial success is always very important. And I try and take advantage of that. But also I'm thinking more about, did I really like that game, even though it maybe wasn't super successful? What's the company doing sort of in the sector? Is it doing something hard and doing that well, or is it just doing what everyone else is doing? So there's sort of it is a ranking sort of system where I'm ranking those companies. And the other thing I sort of did point out, or I do point out, is to do one list is you're sort of doing a snapshot really of the industry, and maybe next week someone will announce something amazing that I didn't know about, and obviously if I was doing the list that week, sort of the list would change. So it takes a lot of work to build it, so you can't really keep changing the list, and sort of the point of it is a snapshot, and hopefully people find that interesting. But sort of in the big scheme of things, what's useful I've found, having been involved in this for a long time, is how the list changes over the years. So who was number one this year? Are they going to be number one next year? How do people move up and down the list? How do sometimes people who are high in the list and 2 years later have sort of just gone bust and disappeared. So it's more really a process rather than the individual singularity of a single list. But obviously the focus is on the single list. Generally, I'm not. This is my view of the industry. I think I'm pretty experienced in doing this sort of stuff. I think I have a process in my head of how I do it, but it's someone else will come up with a potentially a very different list. So this is just a sort of a snapshot. Hopefully it's useful for people. Hopefully people will look at it. It's a lot really for people who are not in the industry, who just want an idea of who are some of the key players really. And so it's a sort of something that people can use to just find out more about the industry, rather than the difference between a company at number 33 and another company at number 34. I'm not making massive arguments around that sort of stuff.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's really helpful. And I think it's quite good timing in a way, as you say, for people who maybe aren't so involved in the industry, because we tend to often, we think that our audience are very well educated already. You don't need to sort of write these introductory pieces all the time, but this is actually quite timely start of 2020, would like or hope, but we're definitely seeing a new sort of influx of people being interested in the space. So in that regard, it's really helpful, I think. And also, like you say, interesting to see that now this hadn't been done for 3 years, but sort of start of 2025, how is it going to be different?
Yeah.
So thank you for that. Moving on to talk about everybody else got kind of caught up in the kind of crypto winter of 2023 and has been struggling a bit. And in February last year was the highest kind of month for in terms of NFT sales of 69 million, and already in January now they're breaking that. They're over 100 million, I think 112 million at the moment in terms of NFT trading on Polygon. And this is much thanks to Gas Hero from Untitled Lab that they account for 91 million only. I mean, it's not one NFT collection, which say is 8 of them, but it's mainly the Common Heroes NFT collection. They have sold 38 million, and this is interesting and obviously significant for Polygon. Can you
or is it
talk about what it means to Polygon?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to take probably a slightly contrarian view on this. So I think this time last year, or even now, if you look at our big blockchain game list, Polygon is the biggest blockchain in terms of the amount of sort of announced titles. But I think this is almost like a high point for Polygon. I think the trend at the moment is a lot of people are leaving Polygon to go to other chains. Partly this is due to, it's not surprising because Polygon has sort of taken us, made a agreement with Immutable that basically they weren't going to compete. Immutable was going to use Polygon's ZK EVM blockchain technology, which is sort of happening now, and Polygon wasn't going to really go out and promote its blockchain because basically all immutable games would be running on Polygon infrastructure. So Polygon took a step back, and since that decision, really, we've seen that's really been the reason that lots of people are moving Polygon. Because even if you go to immutable, you're still running on Polygon sort of thing, but you get all these other, immutable gives you all these other sort of onboarding sort of things as well. So that's the reason that Polygon, has been quite quiet. I mean, Polygon has never been a good place to launch expensive NFTs. It's sort of a fine. The gas fee is obviously much less than Ethereum, so it's a good place to launch NFTs. But there's never been, very expensive NFTs on Polygon. Yeah, it's on Ethereum and Solana, and now Bitcoin via the sort of inscription stuff. So I think what we've seen over the last sort of 8 months is sort of that natural ebbing away of people from Polygon, and this is actually not the start of like a reinvention of NFT trading on Polygon. This is just sort of almost like the end point, I think, of what's been happening, and it is partly because Gas Hero as well is a very odd product. So as you say, it's developed by Find Satoshi Lab, who did Steppen on Solana, so it was a very Solana focused project. But they decided for some reason to move to Polygon. Not quite sure why. Obviously, Solana had a really bad 2023, so I imagine that's one of the reasons. Maybe they got a grant from Polygon, I don't know. But they have a super tight community of people who've made a lot of money playing Steppen and have a lot of assets in the game, and a lot of assets in that ecosystem. And the way that Gas Hero sort of did its token sale, NFT sale, for Gas Hero was very much to its own community, who have done very well out of those games. So who are obviously, prepared to spend money doing that. So it's a little bit, it's and because the game is NFT gated, you have to buy NFTs to play the game. You can play like a demo version of it, tutorial version, but then you have to pay. And the first NFT you need to play at one point was $600. Now it's down to $100, but that's still a lot of money to spend. People are doing it because you get rewarded in tokens in the game. But there's 10,000 people have played the game, and I see, I don't see that as expanding a lot. I don't think this is a game in the current form that's going to be played by 100,000 people, because people don't play NFT gated games anymore. You can't get those games through app stores. This is just a browser based game. There's no dynamic to make that game bigger at the moment. So it's sort of very much a success, definitely, but it's a success within that community of people, and I don't see that at the moment as being sort of predicting an explosion in people playing games on Polygon and Polygon being successful. I think it's still the opposite case. Now, Polygon has a whole bunch of other stuff. It's renaming the Matic token to Pol. It's sort of rebooting itself as Polygon 2.0. So I'm not writing Polygon off, but I think for this year, certainly in the next 6 months, I don't expect Polygon to be sort of leaping back and being like the gaming chain that it sort of has been over the last sort of 18 months.
Mm-mm. Yeah, that's a good point. We, on the note of kind of immutable games, I suppose, we can transition over to talk about Blocklords. So we've seen an increasing amount of games lately having announced airdrops, play-to-airdrop campaigns, or as Blocklords had invented a new term for that airdrop. They call it a game drop, which I suppose is to emphasize that you have to engage with the game and you have to play. It's not just about holding NFTs or doing transactions on the marketplace or whatnot. It's actual, you have to take part in the game, and you have to do it consistently and actively. And excuse me. So you have been playing it for quite some time. I started last year. I love it already, but I'm nowhere near as advanced as you are in it. And you have more, I don't know how many NFTs you've got, but there are two groups basically that will be eligible for this airdrop. So one is for NFT holders who are also, like you said, taking part in the game, and one is through gameplay alone. So you don't have to have any NFTs, but you have to be engaging with the game. So dive into that a little bit, please, John, for us.
Yeah. So, I mean, as we've sort of said in previous episodes, this now, every well, not every, but pretty much every blockchain game that hasn't got a token live is putting out tokens now, doing token events, either selling them or allowing people to sort of get an allocation by playing the game, or allow people to mint them out, sort of thing, by playing the game. That's sort of big time. So this is the big trend of the moment. Obviously, it's happened because crypto sentiment is much better now. I mean, this week's not been great in terms of sort of ETH and Bitcoin prices, but in general, compared to where we were 5 months ago, it's much better. And people are prepared to sort of spend money buying NFT mints and token mints. So to be fair to Blocklords, they've had this plan for a while. So they're not sort of just leaping into it.
I'm not suggesting they sort of jumped on a trend that wasn't ever planned before. No.
I guess the one slightly not weird, the one slightly notable thing about it is they basically, it's not like as far as I can see, Pixels did a lot of people do events where you're based on a leaderboard. So the position on the leaderboard sort of gives you an allocation of tokens. The Blocklords, they've sort of said, as you said, there's sort of two streams. One is for people who own more than 5 NFTs. You do get 1 NFT when you start the game, but you have to go and buy the other ones if you want more than 5. So there's a sort of those people are obviously quite committed to the game, so they'll probably get a better allocation. And the other one is just for people playing the game, and that's probably going to be based on how you are in terms of where you are on the battle pass. So the battle pass is currently live, and you just get rewarded for doing certain things in the game. But they've sort of said there's going to be a snapshot, so and they've not said obviously when it is. so I guess it's sort of one of those things to encourage people to start playing and keep playing, and then at some point they'll say they've made the snapshot. And but I guess with all these things as well, I'm not sure if this is like a one-off event or whether how the token will actually be created, whether people will be able to buy it as well. I don't know. So it's in some ways, I think this is the best way to do these sort of airdrops for if people are already interested in the game. As you said, we've been both interested in it. Been playing it for a while. So I never approach these things as an investment. I never sort of like, I must really play this game 24/7 now to get a massive token allocation. But it's sort of nice if you've been playing the game already and you're sort of quite committed to the game to get some tokens. I don't expect to be getting millions of dollars. Probably $100 or something. And then you get the whole thing about how you actually use that token in the game. I'm not, 100% very sure. I know roughly how they're going to use it, but I think it's still quite a long way to go. But it's it's something we're seeing in lots of games now.
On that note, I think what you said there about sort of you don't sit there 24/7 playing the game just to sort of grind out and increase your rewards. I think this play-to-airdrop model, that's exactly what they're trying to get away from. At least that's what sort of Pixels CEO, what's he called, Luke Barbikowski sort of said that they want to minimize that, so people shouldn't have to sit for hours and hours and hours and grind, but it should be sort of enough to engage for about half an hour a day and still be eligible for it. And I think that really is the model. If you are looking to play a game for the rewards itself, but you also have to balance that with a bit of fun, and it won't be fun, you sit there and grind for forever, then obviously people are going to just get so fed up with the game and I do potentially leave. So
I think it's not exactly how I would have done it, but I do the way the Blocklords sort of has 2 tracks. I think you probably will see more of that, where if games have been live for a while, then there'll be a sort of a larger allocation for people who up to this point have been playing the game because presumably they think it's fun and buying NFTs and stuff without any, obviously with every blockchain game you assume it's going to have a token at some point. So in the back of your mind you might think, I'm going to get rewarded for this at some point, but there's no formal sort of thing. And then another allocation for, you do want to reward your existing audience who've been playing your game through the bad times of 2023, but also this is how you grow a game. So you do want to have an allocation for people who just want to sort of come in and maybe do want to just grind out 24/7 for a week or so. Because some of those will just, you don't want to give them too many tokens because most of those people are getting those tokens and just selling them. But presumably, if you think you've got a good game, you want to get people in there playing it a lot. And some people might go, and this game's really cool as well. And I've got this free stuff and maybe I won't sell it. So there is a balance there. And I guess every game will have to choose its how it wants to sort of, balance between those two things. I guess the problem for a lot of games, if a game isn't live yet, you haven't got retrospective players to play it, so you can't really do it that way. But I think that's the most, because like in general we talk about this in blockchain games. Speculation will always be there, traders will always be there. So you sort of want to leverage them to your benefit, but you really don't want them, and as much as possible you want to limit their impact on the people who actually are your sort of core audience who do like your game. and speculation is sort of. It's not like I mean, there are certain sort of 100% speculators who just like ape in and out of games to get extract money, but even players have there's a speculative mindset within that. I think as well. So, but you want to be obviously more on the I don't know 80% encouraging your audience of existing players and community, and maybe 5%
and at least so
towards
far,
speculators.
Pixels are kind of showing that the players that join the game because of an airdrop, they've actually not just come for the rewards, they have remained with the game. I mean, it's early days still, but their wallets have sort of the daily active users have remained steady and even kept increasing slightly, I think.
Yeah, that's a very good sign.
So, yeah, absolutely. Right, so to top off the news roundup this week, we will mention Immutable and the onboarding of Endless Clouds with Capsule Heroes and Treeverse, which has been one of the sort of highly anticipated titles in space for a while. Loopified.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. Yeah, maybe I'd say anticipated. I'm not sure I would go highly anticipated. I don't know. It's I was a bit surprised by this actually, because Treeverse has been around as a project for a couple of years now. It's done like NFT drops. It's got character NFTs. It's got land NFTs. It's got these tree NFTs that are super expensive. Well, they were at one point in the last market. And it's got this guy Loopify, who's on Twitter. That's his Twitter handle. I assume it's a him. Might be a her, I suppose, but I think it's a him. And he's sort of quite crypto native, and quite spiky, as people can be on Twitter, but also be building out this game Treeverse, which is I've been following they've had they do monthly Substack sort of updates what's going on. So it's a sort of proper game. They've raised money. They're not like an experienced team, I don't think, in terms of existing stuff. So they've had a few stumbles along the way, but they were very crypto sort of centric. So I was a bit surprised they went to Immutable, because Immutable obviously is sort of one of these platforms which is a little bit like we'll do a lot of stuff for you. And I thought Treeverse would probably want to build their own sort of tech stack, because there's other ways of doing it. But they've gone with Immutable. Obviously, Immutable, I guess, offered them a decent deal. They've got this other game, as you mentioned, Capsule Heroes. That is a much newer game and sort of came out, as far as I can remember, came out of like a game jam. They were just sort of messing around, and they came up with this game, sort of like more like an action sort of game, more sort of casual action game. Whereas Treeverse is more like a RPG sort of game. And they seem to really liked it. They thought this was really good, and suddenly they're making two games, which I was a bit nervous about, because they're not a massive team, and suddenly you're making two games. So I guess to a degree they were finding Treeverse quite difficult, because those games are really difficult to make. So maybe it was kind of good. They felt to have something that's going a bit faster and a bit more fun. It was a good way of doing it. So I can see why Capsule Heroes would go with Immutable, but Treeverse I was a bit surprised about. We'll have to sort of see. I mean, this is something we talk about a lot. I mean, Immutable are really on a big push at the moment to front themselves up as the big blockchain game chain. I guess that's sort of interesting because they're, compared to inverted commas, Ronin is clearly the blockchain game, the gaming blockchain with a big hit at the moment, and Immutable doesn't have a big hit yet, and I don't know when its sort of next big games are coming out. So I guess that's the tension, that they're going for this. Yeah, they might have one sort of hit.
Pretty confident in the titles building on Immutable, I think. Yeah, but they have sort of been for a while, and I would say there's sort of different approaches there, because Ronin has been quite clear with the fact that we're quite selective about which developers we sort of let into our ecosystem almost, whereas Immutable are much more about the quantity of it, almost like, before B&B used to be that big one with all the sort of just all the games on, and now Immutable is sort of more of that kind of strategy, just onboarding a multitude of different types of games. Like in the last week when I've been looking at these kind of recent games to onboard. There's loads of play to earn games that uses that sort of brand themselves, which in 2023 is sort of plenty of games moving away from that kind of term, but now in the sort of changing sentiment of Web3 gaming, that's coming back, and a lot of those games are coming to Immutable. So it'll be interesting to see, really, to follow throughout this year how they go. But they are obviously having these bigger AAA titles that they're talking about as well, and they got Gods Unchained, Guild Guardians, all these Illuvium and whatnot. So I suppose they would measure that with Ronin's kind of hit titles, that when these break through, sort of thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, you sort you have to play the hand you've got. Immutable hasn't got a lot of big live games at all, so it can't talk about look at all our DAUs because we haven't got any. So obviously the thing it can play on is, and is sort of it's got. We sort of laugh about it. It used to go from we got 200 games, and now it's up to 250, I think, isn't it? Fairly recently on their marketing sort of push. So they're really pushing the fact that okay, at the moment there's this one. They didn't say this, but reading between the lines, they would say, Ronin's got this one hit game. And maybe it's going to have 10 games out this year. We're going to have 100 games out this year, and some of ours are going to be bigger hits than that. So we'll see if that happens. But it's sort of it's a little insider joke that we like to have.
No, but in terms of sort of spotting trends, I think that it's exactly what you're saying. They're really on a push, and we haven't. They have not confirmed those 250 titles. They still got 100 sitting on their website, of which some are not sort of really on Immutable, some are not really game projects, but they keep adding and adding and adding, and those aren't on the website yet, the sort of recent ones they've announced. So it's definitely going in the direction that they are claiming, although those 250 are yet to be sort of officially revealed to us. But yeah. So on that note, we're going to round off for this week, and thank you very much for listening, watching, and we will see you all next week. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.